billion state budget last week, which outlined plans for dealing with the migrant crisis, the gun violence epidemic, bail reform, and affordable housing.
So many important topics here, but her proposal is putting her at odds at times with New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who says Governor Hochul's budget proposal will leave the city $4 billion in the hole. So joining us now in person is Governor Kathy Hochul to discuss and address some of these concerns. Governor, good to see you in person.
Good morning. Great to see both of you again.
Governor, I do want to begin off with the reaction to the shooting over the weekend that claimed the life of an off-duty NYPD officer, because this case really, once again, highlighting the need for gun reform and for stricter gun laws that's really been plaguing the city and the state. How are you addressing this in this year's budget?
That story is so heartbreaking, and too many New Yorkers, whether they're in uniform, not in uniform, civilians, are falling prey to gun violence. And I have worked very hard with all law enforcement to stop the flow of illegal guns from coming into the state. We have stopped over 10,000 guns already, but one illegal gun is one too many. So our hearts are breaking for this family. My budget leans hard into public safety. We've been working on this since I've been governor. Giving more money for law enforcement, helping our district attorneys, making sure that we change the laws so the judges can do common sense things when it comes to making decisions on an individual. So this has always been my top priority, public safety #1, but it is a pall over the city today to know we lost one of New York's finest.
Yeah, and here in the city, we are seeing that the perpetrators, the victims of gun violence, are getting younger and younger. What more can be done to keep guns out of the hands of children?
Right, and it's all about getting them on a different path early enough. That's why our budget puts a significant amount of money into, first of all, alternatives for incarceration for someone who may have mental health problems or substance abuse problems. But for younger kids, we're going to have after-school programs, make sure their summer job program can continue through the year. These kids need productive activities with adult supervisions, adults who care for them. So that's an important part of our priorities heading into the next year.
Yeah, Mayor Adams says the rise in crime connected to bail reform, and he has spoken about this time and time again, right? Wants to roll back some of the reforms passed in 2019. You have amended the laws. Where are we at with that? And do you actually think that some of these amendments will get passed? There's a lot of conversation and pushback from various sides of the aisle.
Right, and I have to be clear on this. We know that bail reform was not the reason why crime went up all over the country. So let's level set that. What I've done last year was put in factors for judges to consider. Instead of just saying someone commits an offense, you only have to determine whether they're going to come back to go to jail or not. Are they a risk of flight, basically? So now I think I know a judge can look at factors we gave them, but there's still an inconsistency in the law. So I'm just going back to the legislature one more time and just saying, let's fix this inconsistency where judges are told in one part, look at all these factors, seriousness of crime, repeat offender, was a gun involved, everything I wanted them to look at when determining whether or not someone committed a serious or violent offense. That's the category we're looking at, not all crimes, just the ones that'll do harm to others, ones that are serious. But the law still has that clause that says you should only consider the least restrictive means to get them back to court. So you can see the inconsistency. I just want to fix that. And I'm going to be talking to the legislators about our priorities, but we have to make sure we have strong public safety measures, but also we're not sacrificing justice.
But there are some Democrats who say we're not changing it.
Well, that's what a budget conversation is all about. There's a lot of decisions. I was told last year that there would not be a single change to the bail laws, and we had significant changes. So everybody knows we have to ultimately come together and pass a budget to help New Yorkers have a more affordable life, and that's what our focus on the budget is: affordability, safety, public safety, mental health. Significant investments in mental health, and in some cases that's a driver of crime as well. People are on the streets. They're not getting help they need. It is sometimes a situation where they can do harm to someone on a subway or on a sidewalk. We have a holistic approach to public safety, making sure New Yorkers have the security and sense of safety they deserve.
Yeah, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about President Biden's State of the Union address last night. He talked about police reform and saying that it has to happen locally, that's where the changes need to be made. There's some disturbing numbers here in the city. I mean, recently we learned that the NYPD paid out more than $120 million to settle misconduct cases with their officers. Where do you stand on police reform?
Absolutely. I've said this before. You know, we support law enforcement, but anybody crosses that line and abuses the privilege of wearing that uniform and that badge, there have to be severe consequences, because you cannot allow a culture to fester as what happened in Memphis. You can tell that was from the top or wherever it came from, there's a lot of people who subscribe to this idea that once you put on that uniform, you've got power, you can abuse people. Now, I will tell you, that is not at all the norm, just like there's a few bad politicians and maybe there's a few bad teachers once in a while. You cannot have a broad brush and criticize the men and women in uniform who protect us every day. But when they cross the line, we don't have, if there's not people who are sufficiently trained in sensitivity, understanding racial disparities in neighborhoods, how people perceive something differently, we need to have that training, making sure that they have to use sort of the least resistance necessary. We don't allow chokeholds in the state of New York, in our state police. We have a lot of those restrictions in place. And we also have to make sure that we start building the trust back between the communities they protect and with the individuals who are wearing that uniform. And that's what's so important, building that trust back.
Absolutely. A big part of your budget involved the migrant crisis. This is a conversation that has really taken center stage here in New York, not only in the city, but upstate as well. $1 billion to support asylum seekers. The mayor said it's going to cost, though, $4.2 billion, $1.4 this year, $3.8 next year. You talked about a third, right? A third to state, a third will be paid by the city, and a third by the federal government. Have you gotten that pledge, though, from the federal government to pay that third?
The federal government is going to be helping us. We don't know the exact number, but that is what I'm going to Washington to talk about, among many other issues with the National Governors Association. I have meetings about the migrant situation. The federal government does need to step up and help the states like New York and help New York City. I have been lockstep with Mayor Adams from the beginning, that the federal government needs to address this. Now, I know that I had a conversation with the mayor yesterday, a long conversation about the budget. We're working together on this. But I stepped up and said, we can help you as well. We'll commit to paying a percentage, a very high percentage, 29% of all the costs associated with the housing, the emergency shelter. We are putting in more state police and law enforcement and National Guard to help manage the situation. We are helping with the legal services because once these individuals can apply for legal status, then the clock starts ticking where they can actually get a job at the end of 180 days.
But the mayor has also talked about possibly moving some of the migrants outside of New York City because the shelter system is so burdensome. Have you had those conversations with the mayor about looking at some locations upstate? Are there locations, either Westchester or whatever you want to call upstate, that you are maybe looking at?
There are certainly some communities that are looking to embrace the migrant community. Some of them have ended in the southern tier. Some are going to the northern part of the state. So there are communities that are open-minded to this. But these individuals, once they come to the United States, they actually are given a choice of where they want to go. Many want to be in New York City because they know New York City. They've heard of it. It has a reputation. So we'll work with individuals, work with the mayor. That's my philosophy. You know, we just roll up our sleeves and do what we can. But putting $1 billion on the table, it's far more than any other governor has committed to help with this problem because we want to make sure that the burden is not borne solely by the city of New York. So we're working together.
I mean, you talk about housing the migrants, but it's an issue just for regular New Yorkers, affordable housing. What more can be done?
I have made this one of the signature initiatives in this year's budget because our affordability crisis and the lack of affordable housing, not just the price of a house, you can't even find a place, whether it's home ownership, which everybody deserves to have a path to home ownership, or even a rental if you're a young person starting out. You want to come to New York City and it's exciting, but how can you pay $4,000 or $5,000 a month for rent?
Crazy.
It's impossible. So we put forth a plan to build 800,000 new units over the next decade. It comes across many, many dynamics. One is office conversions here in Midtown. There's a lot of people who could be living right near where they work, coming to this city, creating 24/7 neighborhoods, but also changing the laws in our suburban areas so we can allow more housing to be built.
I do want to get you, while we still have you here, because the mayor is heading to Albany next week to lobby some folks to be on his side of the aisle for what things he has issue with when it comes to the budget. You had put forth saying you'd like the city to hand over $500 million to help pay for the MTA, which of course is in a fiscal disaster right now. The mayor has said that they just cannot commit to that $500 million. So if you don't get that from the mayor, what do you see this going? Because he's saying we can't do that forever. Where's the money coming from?
Right. Well, we are focused on many ways to make sure that the MTA, which is the lifeline of the city of New York and the whole region. So I've had to deal with the fact that we have a fiscal cliff, a $3 billion shortage in funding for the MTA operations, basically because of the pandemic. We still are only at about 2/3 of where we had been. Those revenues have hit our bottom line very seriously because we don't have the ridership we once had. So we have to be creative. We have many sources of money, more direct money from the state. MTA finding $400 million themselves in savings. a payroll mobility tax so employers in the region can contribute to what is a relatively inexpensive, compared to driving, alternative to get their employees to work. And the city, and this was once a city agency, they used to run the MTA, and we've been running it, but also the city, we're asking them simply to cover two costs that are borne solely by New York City residents that benefit them. One is these getting children free passes to go to school, and the other one is for paratransit. So just asking him to allow us to stop the subsidy, the subsidizing.
He says he can't.
Well, we're having those conversations because I just put $1 billion on the table to help with the migrant problem.
Yep.
So we actually are helping the city to the tune of $21 billion this year. So there's a lot of money coming to the city, 10% increase in education funds for the city and the rest of the state. So we have other pots of money where we are more than making the city whole. But we're working together. That's what this is all about. The process is interesting. When it's all done, we just shake hands and move on.
Well, we hope to continue more conversations with you in the very near future. And we know you're very busy, so we appreciate you coming in to talk to us live in the studio.
Thank you very much. Great to see both of you.